desperate, at the time I was 17, 18, unemployed, and I was desperate to get a break. And I knew that if I did get a try, I would grab the chance.
I think it was always going to be boxing. The minute I stepped into the gym as a 10 or 11-year-old, boxing just took hold of my heart straight away. I love everything about the sport of boxing.
Hello, I'm Marie Crowe, and this is We Become Heroes, the RTE Sport podcast that explores how elite athletes and sports people reach the top of their game and the lessons that they learned along the way. Now, I'm delighted to say that my guest today is Ireland cricketer Kevin O'Brien. Kevin, first of all, how are you? How's life?
Yeah, great. Busy, which is always good. But yeah, kind of coming into the season now, so training is picking up, and obviously anticipation to get back out in the field is improving. So yeah, looking forward to getting going now in a couple of weeks' time when the season starts.
How are things different for you now? So and for your sport. So when you started, obviously so young, and the game has developed so much now. Just in terms of how you feel the game is in this country.
Yeah, I suppose when I started playing cricket for Ireland in 2006, we had no professional players. We had one paid staff member that was the head coach at the time, A.D. Burrell. It was an organisation run by pretty much amateurs. So yeah, and obviously the players were kind of weekend players. We'd go off and play over in England, or play against a few of the lesser countries on a weekend, and then back into the day job for most of the people on Monday morning. So yeah, it was certainly a different time back then, and to where we are now in 15 or 16 years is a phenomenal achievement by everyone off the field, but obviously everyone on the field as well, to get the organisation and position they're in at the moment.
Did you ever think you'd have a career in cricket as a professional athlete?
Not growing up, it was never done by anyone really. Up until Ed Joyce probably went over in probably the late 90s. Early 2000s, and that's probably when a lot of other players realised that there's a chance can be achieved over in England in the county game, and I suppose county teams and county staff coaches looked at Ireland as a way of getting some high quality players, and since Ed went over, Boyd Rankin went over, Owen Morgan, my brother Niall, myself, William Porterfield, Gary Wilson, Paul Sterling, the list goes on. So unfortunately, the last couple of years that stopped due to us getting test status. But yeah, hopefully that the game here at the provincial level can improve the standard at the national level.
So things are a little bit different for you now from when you started. For such a long time, like probably one of the first names on the team sheet, and now battling to get back into the Ireland squad. What's that like?
Frustrating. If I'm being honest, but I suppose that's professional sport, and what I've learned in the last couple of months is there's not much loyalty involved in professional sport. So I think players, when we get to a certain age in our career, the twilight period, people are potentially maybe are a little bit. I don't want to say unfair, but certainly the age may be considered in your selection and your future selections. But that's sport, and that's just the way I've got to deal with it now. And I've got my goal is to get back in the team, and hopefully I can perform well at the interprovincial level, and force my way back in.
Were you surprised that it has gone this way for you?
Yes, certainly taking the phone call at in October, November, whenever it was. Yeah, I was very, very surprised and pretty shocked. Obviously I didn't have a fantastic season, but I don't think a lot of us did in the team. So, but yeah, that's just something I've got to deal with, and I've let it go now. I was upset and hurt at the time, but these things happen for a reason. So. Yeah, I'm going to come back, and I will get back in the team. I'm fully confident that I'm going to get back in the squad, and I'm going to be on the plane to Australia in 8 months' time. So yeah, it's just giving me a bit of motivation to prove some people wrong.
It's not a bad thing at all, having that motivation to prove people wrong.
Yeah, and I think that's what's probably driven me throughout my career. whenever people have doubted my position in the team, I've always put in a performance to, you know, either get us in a chance of winning a game or win us a match. So yeah, that's the type of character I am. I like proving people wrong. I like being the underdog. And I suppose now I'm probably both of those. You know, I want to prove people wrong, and you know, I'm kind of an underdog. And whether people expect me to get back in the team or whether I can, you know, still play at a high level, I think I can. I think my performances over the last 12 months have been inconsistent, but there's been some good match-winning performances in there. So, you know, I still have the hunger to get back in the team and, you know, go to another World Cup.
So what have you been doing then? Like, how do you get to a situation where you feel that you will be selected? Like, what kind of things do you do?
Yeah, well, I've moved from Leinster Lightning, my provincial side. I've moved down to Munster. You know, I think a fresh approach and a fresh start to the inter-pro structure for me is what I need. Yeah, it got very stale at Leinster, and that's nothing against the people involved or the teammates or anything like that. It's just, you know, playing with one team for 9 years, you know, winning 17 out of 19 competitions, does get a bit boring. So again, you know, I wanted to move and, you know, get a fresh team and a fresh approach. And hopefully that gives me the inspiration and the motivation to kind of go on and put in some really good performances for Munster. So yeah, looking forward to that. And I've just got to train hard over the next couple of weeks and months, and, you know, get to know the new coach as well as I can. And hopefully, you know, he can see that I've still got something to offer the team.
Okay, well, lots to look forward to anyway over the next few months, and hopefully a busy year ahead for you on the international scene as well. But let's go back first. So what were your earliest memories of sport?
Yeah, probably just down in the local club with Railway Union, just with my brothers and, you know, all of the mates we hung around with. Just watching Dad play probably from a very early age, maybe 4 or 5 years old. So yeah, Dad played for Railway for, you know, 60 years or something, or 50 years, something crazy. So yeah, just down in Railway every weekend watching him play. And, you know, obviously if there was Test cricket on TV on the BBC, myself and Nyla would probably park up in front of that and watch that with a can of Coke and a packet of crisps for a few hours. So yeah, just down in the club watching my dad and watching Test cricket.
Who were your heroes? Sporting now, it doesn't have to just be cricket in general.
Well, probably when I was very young, yeah, it was probably, you know, a couple. One from cricket would have been Sean Pollock when I was a little bit younger. He's South African ex-captain. You know, a red hair like me, very similar type of bowler, and a kind of middle order batsman. So probably I maybe kind of modelled my game slightly on him, although I'm more of a batsman than he was. But then from a football point of view, I obviously watched football growing up. I loved Paul Gascoigne as a player. Hence why I supported Spurs, Lazio, and for a time Rangers. So yeah, I just loved the way he played the game. He was just, you know, very, very full of arrogance and, you know, a great natural flair of how he could play football. And yeah, he was just a bit of a fan favourite, and, you know, I just loved the way he went about it. And I'll never forget his goal against Arsenal in the semi-final at Wembley. So that's a memory that's sticks with me from an early age.
What about you then and other sports? Obviously cricket's such a big part of your life, but, you know, when kids are young, they often dip their toes into many other things. Were you one of those kids?
Yeah, I played everything. Obviously, growing up in Sandymount, we've got a lot of sports clubs around there. You know, you have Clanagale, where I played as a kid. You know, played Gaelic, tried a little bit of hurling, but, you know, wasn't really into it that much. But I loved playing Gaelic as a fullback, and played in school as well in Marion College. So I enjoyed that. Played hockey in Railway Union, you know, from a young age as well, and really enjoyed that. And then, yeah, just, you know, tried a little bit of rugby in school, didn't like that. But I think it's the important thing for me, certainly, and, you know, something I try and tell, you know, my kids and other young adults that I train and coach. You just got to try a lot of other sports, you know, because you might ultimately pick a sport, you know, when you're in your teenage years, but the sports that you try when you're young certainly do add to the skills needed to play whatever relative sport you play. So, you know, I think certainly from my cricket career, I think other sports have certainly helped. Hand-eye coordination from hockey has certainly helped. My hand-eye coordination in cricket, my footwork needed for, you know, to play hockey or to play, you know, fullback to move, and, you know, that's helped my footwork in the field, or it's helped my footwork when I'm batting. So I think you've got to try, you know, all sports, and that's just, I mean, that doesn't include, just doesn't include ball sports. You know, things like, you know, I don't know, gymnastics or something. You know, certainly going to help your body get stronger and, you know, get more flexible and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's to be encouraged just to play as many sports as you can growing up, and then, you know, when you get to a certain age, and you can kind of focus on one or two sports and see where you go from there.
Were you good at everything?
No. I was brutal at rugby, hence why I only played 3 games. I was too scared to play hurling. I wouldn't get in on a 50-50. But yeah, no, I enjoyed Gaelic. I was a fullback who didn't really move much. But I was good at marking, so I was good at catching the ball from cricket. So that's probably why I stuck in fullback. And I played a little bit of football as well. But I was okay at most sports. I probably never realised that, you know, I was half decent at cricket until probably 17 or 18 years old. I was kind of good. I was good at all sports without excelling in any one in particular. So
you were late teens by the time then that you realised you had a bit of talent for cricket. Why was that the case?
Well, I was picked for the Irish under 13s at 13, but, you know, I think probably the number of players available to play were limited. So, I mean, I probably didn't realise that, you know, because it was such a big deal to be picked. I didn't make the Irish under 15s, I think, or the 16s, whatever age it was. I was dropped for a tournament, and I'll never let the coach at the time forget that. I always remind him whenever I see him. So, yeah, it was probably when I was 17. I got back into the Irish underage system, and we had the World Cup a couple of years after that. So it was probably from those 17, 18, 19 kind of years where I realised that, you know, cricket's it's a pretty cool sport. Yeah, I enjoy it. I'm actually not too bad at it. You know, and obviously there's a World Cup a couple of years down the line. This was in 2002, so there's a World Cup in 2004, an under-19 World Cup. So it's something to kind of look forward to from that point of view.
When you didn't make that under 15, 16 squad, was that a motivator for you even back then?
Yeah, probably looking back. Yeah, probably. I didn't realise at the time. Again, I felt I should have been picked, and, you know, it wasn't for various reasons, which I disagreed with. But yeah, you know, I think maybe that's where my kind of attitude has stemmed from, and, you know, always wanted to prove people wrong, and maybe it's from that non-selection. That's where I've got my kind of motivation from.
So what did you, when you were developing then as a cricketer, what did you have to work on most in your game?
Everything. You know, I think, like, for me, I was an all-rounder, so I batted and bowled. So obviously, being an all-rounder, you've got your training sessions are longer. You know, your training sessions are physically harder because you've got to bowl, and then you've got to do some fielding, and then you've got to go in and do batting, and then you might need to bowl some more. So batters and bowlers have it pretty easy because they just do one discipline of training. They just go in and bat, and then they sit down for an hour.
I never thought about that.
Until the bus is ready to go. Whereas all-rounders like me, and, you know, we've got to bat and bowl and do some fielding, and then if you want to do extra stuff, it's, you know, so our sessions pretty much are on the go all the time. So yeah, I mean, I suppose I had to work on everything. But I was probably certainly started off as a bowler who batted a little bit. But then at the under-19 World Cup, I came home as a batter who bowled. Just for whatever reason, something clicked with my batting, and I kind of, you know, focused on that a little bit more than my bowling from then on.
So when you're that age and you're thinking about life as a teenager, did you by then think maybe there could be a pathway there for you?
No. You know, I went, so I finished school in 2002. I went to college in IT Tallaght to study accountancy. You know, so cricket wasn't really on my radar even at 18, 19. You know, so for the World Cup, I had to drop out of college and, you know, kind of defer my year and kind of go to the World Cup and that type of thing. So, you know, post World Cup in 2004, I was selected to go to MCC Young Cricketers, which is a kind of an academy scheme where the guys train at Lord's 5 days a week, the most iconic cricket ground in the world. So, and you play against the county 11 second teams. So I got selected to go on that. So I went over to London to live for 2 summers at the age of 18 and 19. So that was a bit of an eye opener for me. But a great learning curve from life's point of view, how to fend for yourself, how to look after yourself, and from a cricket point of view as well, trying to play 5 days a week against some pretty seriously good professional cricketers who have been professionals for a long time. So it was a great learning curve on the field for me as well. So I came back certainly after those 2 years a much better cricketer. And then it was probably only I realised that potentially I want to try and make a career out of it. But even then, in 2006 I came home. 2005, 2006, there's no option of being a professional here in Ireland. So I did a few trials with a few counties over in England to try and get signed up from 2006 onwards. Ultimately didn't make it, but obviously got selected then a couple of months later for Ireland for my first time.
So what moment did you think, okay, I can make it, I can, I belong at this level and I can have a career?
Well, we went to the 2007 World Cup with only one professional cricketer. At the time, I was working in a nightclub pulling pints. Trent Johnson, who was our captain at the time, was a salesman. Kenny Carroll was a postman. So we had all Kyle McCallum was a teacher. So we had a wide range of jobs, I suppose, within the team. But ultimately we were there for 4 or 5 weeks initially. We kind of trained as a professional team in the lead up to the tournament. Obviously we did what we did. Beat Pakistan on Paddy's Day, beat Bangladesh then in the Super 8s to finish 7th in the World Cup. So from that moment on, probably people around the world took notice of the Irish cricket team, and we all said, listen, this is where we want to be as a team, as players. We want to be playing the World Cups. And it was probably from that moment on that, for me, I still thought there was no professional career in Ireland to be gained. So I tried to go again back over to England and signed a few short-term contracts, and then thankfully in 2010 I got my first contract with Cricket Ireland, where I was kind of employed by them first and foremost.
When you were going to the trials, did you firmly believe you weren't good enough, or do you think that there was probably a perception that maybe you didn't have the background?
Certainly, probably maybe before 2007, I might have thought, maybe I don't have what it takes, especially if a trial goes badly. And cricket's such a, in the moment game. If you're a batter or a bowler, you get a good ball as a batsman, you get out and you think, and at a young age, you're not as strong mentally as you are, say, now, for example. So if you do get a good delivery and a bowler gets you out, you might walk off thinking you're not good enough. But, ultimately you've got to become mentally strong to realise he's a good bowler and he just got me out in the day, but I'll come back tomorrow and I'll get runs. But, as a 19-year-old, 18, 19-year-old, you don't think like that. If you get a few low scores, you think the world's going to end. But I suppose, thankfully, having played a lot of games and played for a long period of time, failed a lot of times, I think you become certainly more resilient mentally to forget about your failings, but also try and forget about your successes as well, because cricket's such an up and down sport. Like most sports, you'll have good days, but you'll certainly have more bad days than good.
It's quite interesting because I guess, look, when the general sports fan in Ireland thinks about cricket, they have memories of all the good days and, probably don't know much really about the bad days, which is quite a strange thing when you compare it to maybe other sports where you'd be very aware of, Irish soccer teams' failures at Europeans or Worlds, and likewise with with the Ireland rugby team going to World Cups and, reaching quarters. But with the cricket, we tend to talk about all the good days, but you've lived through the bad ones as well.
Yeah, and some really bad ones. I could mention, plenty here, but it would take up too much time. But yeah, obviously from a team's, failing or poor results, also a personal one as well. Out of the games I've played for Ireland, I've probably had, 50 really good innings, but I've had probably 275 that haven't been very good. So it's just, that's like most sports, unless you're someone like Tiger Woods in golf, or you're like, Cristiano Ronaldo in football, or Tom Brady in American football. They're one in a million. I'm an okay cricketer. I've achieved a lot in my sport thanks to some very good teammates as well. But ultimately, I've had certainly a lot more bad days than good. But that's just that is professional sport, I think.
It really is. So while we're on the topic of bad days, then what is the biggest setback that you've had to overcome?
Well, personally, it's in 2010 I was struggling, and I was doubting my own ability within the team, and I wasn't getting runs, wasn't getting wickets, and it was probably that period I was really, really down. I thought I was going to be dropped, and probably for some reason, I don't know why, I got to that position, because I'd just become a professional cricketer, Cricket Ireland, and this was probably, I think it was around March time, so it was early on. Maybe I put too much pressure on myself as a professional. Now that I'm training 3-4 days a week, I expect results straight away, and they didn't come. But so that was a tough period for me. Thankfully Niall was on tour at the same time, so I remember having a beer in his hotel room. He was just telling me just to take it easy and just relax and just go out and play my way and kind of back myself and that type of thing. So that was a pretty dark moment. Feared my position at the team, but thankfully got over that, and had a good couple of series after that, so got me back on track.
Did you work on the mindset, resilience side of things with anyone, or was it something that you built up yourself?
Yeah, I've done a little bit, but I wouldn't have done it very actively. If I think now that I'm a bit older, I know, how to kind of forget about games and how to forget about performances and that type of thing. It's difficult because obviously, people expect you to perform well as a professional, and once you go through a few games of not getting the scores you want or the scores people want, it can really put you down a spiral into a bad position. But I've become very resilient, and I kind of ignore what people think. For me, the only pressure I really have is what I put on myself. I don't. Doesn't really matter to me, or I don't really care what people expect me to do on the pitch. My performances in the past are there. People know that what I can do. But ultimately, I just worry about myself and worry about how I can prepare to be ready to go to play a match. And then once the game's finished, it's for me, it's done. Win, lose or draw. If I've done well, if I haven't done well, I'll obviously review the game in my own way. But then ultimately, once I've reviewed it, it's done. I forget about it. And having two children helps. You come home after a day's cricket. Whether you've been successful by scoring runs or winning, whether you haven't by losing and not getting any runs, the two kids don't really care what you did. So they're just happy that dad's home, and that helps me forget about cricket and helps me kind of just move on to tomorrow.
When you hold records like the fastest 100 at a World Cup, does that bring expectation then on you that people think you're going to do that all the time?
Yeah, probably. But again, listen, that's for other people to think, and what they want to say, they can say. It doesn't really worry me. It doesn't bother me. I don't really. Obviously, I do read them because you're tagged in a tweet saying this, but it's hard not to see. But I try not to take it on board. It's obviously great having people expecting you to do that every match, but ultimately they've got to be a little bit realistic and realize that I probably never will do that again. So it's easier to forget about those type of things when it's something that will probably never happen again, certainly in my career anyway.
It's nice to have the records though, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it's great. But it's, from a personal point of view, it's fantastic. And still, what is it, 11 years later, people still talk about it. It's like every 2nd of March every year, I get about 55,000 tweets saying, "Oh, well batted, what a day, I was here," and this, which is great, but for me, I've played about 200 games since then. You know, and I've achieved a lot in cricket for Ireland. I've achieved a lot in life, so I try not to talk about the game too much, although it's difficult not to.
Yeah, I guess, look, you've given people so many good memories. You know, the fact that even they're bringing it up all these years later and they can remember where they are when that happened and felt part of it. Like, that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm not. I don't want to sound like begrudging or anything. You know, that someone's tweeting me on the 2nd of March in 2030 saying 19 years ago you did this. Listen, it'd be great, and you know, it'd be great for when my kids are old enough to kind of understand what's going on. But yeah, you know, obviously at the time it was absolutely crazy, and you know, a couple of years after that was absolutely chaos. But yeah, like, great memories, you know, personally. And the biggest thing was that we won, and it was against England, so that's the most important.
I'm gonna put that reminder in my phone now for so beating England, like, you know, everybody talks about it no matter what the sport is, and not everybody gets to do it. Is it something that it does matter, or do sports fans put too much emphasis on it? Does it matter to the people that are involved, like you guys?
Yeah, I think it does. You know, obviously every win is great for your country, whether it's against England or it's against, you know, no disrespect to Vanuatu or Papua New Guinea. You know, like, every win is amazing. You're playing for your country. You're playing for, you know, the 4.2 million people in the country or whatever it is. You know, you're playing for, you know, your club. You're playing for your teammates in your club. You're playing for your family. You're playing for the loyal fans who travel halfway around the world to watch you play a few games. But you're playing for them. So ultimately, every win is amazing. But yeah, I think beating England is just that bit more special. You know, I'm not going to sit here and, like, you know, I'm not a massive Republican. You know, for me, it's, you know, whatever. But you know, I think just beating England is something special. And I think, yeah, so thankfully we've achieved it twice in my career. Hopefully we can do it more.
Yeah, and I think, like, we're probably seeing it as well with the rugby team. It's happening a little bit more, you know, and yeah, you throw in Cheltenham as well, and it isn't as big a thing maybe as it was years ago when it was a rare enough thing. But it is nice. So tell me about who has had the biggest impact in your career.
Well, probably Dad or Niall, probably from an early stage. You know, obviously watching Dad play from very young, you know, was an inspiration to kind of try and, you know, play with him in the Railway first team, which I never did, unfortunately. But and then obviously Niall, you know, going over to England, you know, in 2001, I think it was 2002, to Kent to sign the contract. You know, he became a professional. He kind of gave me the idea, or gave me the kind of the spur to kind of maybe follow in his footsteps. Yeah, so both Dad and Niall would be two huge influences on me early on, and then A.D. Burrell, who was the coach in 2006, who gave me my first cap, and then probably Phil Simmons, who's the longest serving coach with Ireland for 8 years. So, you know, those two coaches, from a development point of view, and kind of giving me the trust, and, you know, believing in me, and, you know, kind of giving me the skills, helping me improve my skills to be where I was and where I am now. So probably those four had the biggest influence on my career.
When you think of back when you were a kid and you were playing in the garden or in the club or wherever, and you were dreaming of the cricketer that you wanted to be, is there a performance that maybe brings you back there, or a performance that defines you?
Well, yeah, but it's probably the game against England. Again, you know, there's probably two. You know, I think the game against England is one. You know, again, underdogs, pretty much dead and buried. You know, 111 for 5, whatever it was, and then the second was a Test match against Pakistan. You know, following on against miles behind the 8 ball. You know, in the second innings, and then, you know, to go out and score a Test 100, something I thought I'd never even think of saying. You know, it's pretty cool as well. It's a pretty special, proud moment for me personally. So yeah, those two batting performances define me.
They're not bad ones to have at all. So what about your successors? What do you think is your greatest success?
Well, I think just, you know, being part of a team for since 2006. I'm obviously, I think I'm still part of it, or hopeful to be back a part of it. So, to play international cricket since 2006, I mean, going on 16 years is a pretty good achievement. I've obviously worked hard. Probably could have worked harder, if I'm being honest, at times. But again, that's just my makeup, and it's the way I am. Certainly being available to play for 16 years for the Irish team is pretty cool. Being very lucky with lack of injuries, which helps. So, playing in World Cups and T20 World Cups for the last however long, it's pretty cool to be able to sit back and say that. Obviously, playing, 389 times now, so for Ireland, pretty cool. So I'm looking for 400. That's my next goal.
That's a good goal to have. So tell me about the work harder thing, because that's quite interesting, and the fact that you say it's just your makeup. What do you mean by that? I'm
pretty lazy.
Okay.
And I was as a kid, probably still am at the moment. I remember, as a kid growing up, Nyla would be saying, "Oh, come on down to nets to do some training," and I said, "No, I don't want to." Just try and avoid doing extra training if I could. Obviously, that changed slightly when I became a professional cricketer, but just probably could have worked harder over my career to, maybe be I don't know, a slightly better cricketer than I am. I'm not too sure, but certainly I'd shy towards the resting stage, and then pick up an extra 2 or 3 dumbbells and do some more bicep curls or flies or something. I'd rather just finish my gym session and just go home.
People never admit that. It's good. Like it's really interesting, because there's lots of people out there like you. You know what I mean? Like there's lots of people who are definitely would go for the rest day, or maybe decide not to do that one thing that they probably need to do. Do you regret it though?
No, I've no regrets. I've absolutely no regrets in my career so far. So listen, that's just it's the way I am. It's like when I train hard. That's the thing. But I wouldn't spend 3 hours in the gym. I'm in 45 minutes, then I'm gone. I don't. And once I do my session, I'm done. I don't feel the need to go and do an extra set of bicep curls or something. Or if I'm batting or bowling and I'm working on my skills, I'm in for however long it is. I get what I want done, and I'm gone. I don't like to hang around and faff about. I get in, get started, get finished, achieve what I want to achieve from a session, and then go. Certainly now the older I get, if there's a rest day around, I'll take that. But yeah, it's just maybe I don't know. Yeah, maybe I don't know.
So tell me about, I know you're not done yet, but what do you think your legacy is going to be?
I don't know. I mean, I could give you some cliche of like leaving the jersey in a better position than I found it and all that kind of stuff. But I think for me, as long as people look back and say that they enjoyed watching me play cricket, that's what I play the game. I play to obviously perform, and perform a certain way that people are gonna stop what they're doing really and watch, however long I'm batting or if I'm bowling. So, yeah, I mean, just probably hopefully people have enjoyed watching me play cricket the way I've played cricket. I know it's been inconsistent at times, and I apologise for that. But ultimately the highs are there to kind of be remembered sporadically throughout my career. But certainly, if people have enjoyed watching me play bat and have enjoyed watching me bowl and have enjoyed watching me play for Ireland, that's ultimately, that's enough for me.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't be a bad legacy to have. All right, what about what's next? So hopefully for you, you'll get back into the international team. What have you thought about what happens after you finish?
Yeah, I have, and I've been probably working towards that for 2 or 3 years now. Ultimately, my wife is very intelligent, and she's always told me that I can't play cricket forever. So as much as I'd love to, so the last couple of years I've been kind of putting in place what I want to do next, and that's going down into the coaching route. so yeah, I've got my own private coaching, and I do one-on-one stuff and small groups, and I do club coaching sessions. So I'm ramping that up now as we speak, and I'm starting now next week. I've done it the last couple of seasons, last couple of years, kind of it worked it in around my playing schedule. So at the moment that, you know, I've got probably a bit more free time to do some coaching. So that's an avenue I'm looking to get into is to try and do that. And yeah, I was in Estonia last week working with the Estonian national team. They've got a qualifiers in the summer. Yeah, I've got a few interesting calls to make later on and further this week about other national teams that are keen to get me involved. So yeah, hopefully the ball is moving in the right direction, and you know that I can, once I finish playing and realize that my day is done, I can get straight into coaching world.
Do you think when your day is done, you'll know?
Yeah, I've been told that by people, you know, and I think you will. You know, the drive, you know, to continue to improve every day, will eventually go. You know, and when that happens, yeah, I think you've got to ask yourself the question: do you really want to, you know, commit to another season, or do you want to commit to another series of games, or another, you know, couple of months of training? Yeah, so I think you will realize that, and I've been told that by a few people who've retired in the last 4 or 5 years, that once you know it's time to go, you'll know, and then you'll know it's time to take a backseat.
Well, it does sound as well like you have an interesting chapter to come after this current one. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You have left a lasting impact on the sporting landscape, and every March from now on, I will be thinking about you, getting all those Twitter messages. But thanks so much for coming on, and thanks everybody for watching and listening. Please like, subscribe, and leave a review.